From my story to your story, let's talk about grief. I will share my own grief journey, along with interviewing others about their path of sorrow and healing. I hope that you, the listener, will hear something that helps as you navigate your own grief, and that God will be glorified along the way. This content is meant as a discussion and not to give professional help. Let's get started.
So that when she left, all she had was the dress that she purchased to get married in. She had one other outfit and a couple of personal items, and it all fit in one suitcase. And that's what she came to America with. That's all she had.
What a brave young lady.
She did not have her own toothbrush until she was 15.
Oh, our stars.
And she got a job, and she bought her own toothbrush.
Wow.
Because they had to share.
Go from 11 of you to, it's just me. My husband's in the military.
And a lot of times, I mean, Dad didn't have that. Dad came from a very different family. Now, he had a brother and a sister, but they were not that kind of close. And then Dad would be, you know, Mom used to joke and say, I think he forgot he was married. Because he just wouldn't come home, you know. Like he would, like for days, just not come home. And so not only was she alone, that she was alone a lot.
It helps my Nana, if you're watching on YouTube, to like and subscribe. If you are listening on the podcast, please like and follow. We would love for you to do that now to help our channel grow and become a blessing to others.
Today I have a dear friend of mine, Valerie Kucera, with me, and we are going to discuss the grief that comes around the loss and after the loss of her mother, who had a longer-term illness. She was in and out of hospitals and in and out of rehab centers. And so we're going to talk about that perspective along with just the joy that her mother was. And so that's where we're going to start today is first of all, I want you to tell me some things about your mom.
I always look at talking about my mom's story as in like 3 stages, actually. Okay. It kind of starts with a lifetime. She lived a lifetime before she was 20. She was born in England, so she left England when she was 20, but she was the second oldest of 9 children.
Wow.
And so when she left England, she left behind grandparents and parents and all of her siblings, and they were all still in the same, pretty much a 5-mile radius. They stayed, and she was the only one to leave.
Okay.
And left behind quite a group of people. And when I say she lived a lifetime before she was 20, there were stories, just so many stories that really built a foundation for how she lived her life in the next part of that journey of who she was.
Okay.
So one of the stories in particular, so her birthday was December the 6th.
Yes.
So on December the 6th in 1944, she, you know, her birthday. So she was excited, you know, as any 6-year-old would be. It was going to be her 6th birthday. December the 6th, only the war was going on.
Oh, wow.
And so in the anticipation of birthday, there was not going to be a birthday present. There wasn't going to be a cake. What there was going to be was a baby because her mom was expecting a baby. And her little baby sister, Carol, was born 2 days later, December the 8th.
Okay.
So she got a little baby, a real baby doll for her birthday. And so the baby was born, and she was excited, this real baby, only she was horrified because all around there was war, and there were bombs falling, and they had to evacuate to the bomb shelter. And she tells the story of the thought of putting this tiny little baby in this iron casket and having to take the baby down into the bomb shelter. And
oh my.
Just, I can't even imagine, you know, and then, but yeah, she tells the story, smile on her face, because like, this was life. This is the way it was. My grandfather was not away in the war because he medical condition. I believe it was flat feet. That's what she always said. I don't know the truth of that because she did like to spin quite the yarn. But
literally,
but there were blackout conditions because of the bombs and stuff like that. And so, from what I gathered, he did deliver most of the children during the war. Not only his own children, but in the neighborhood as well. But I believe he delivered the baby, and as well as many of the other brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And so, in delivering the children and during blackout situations, and this was just a normal occurrence in the household. You just, hey,
if it's what you're used to,
another baby's being born, and as a 6-year-old, it was. Here we think about being 6 years old. And it's your birthday. You're expecting a normal birthday celebration with the little hat and the everything, and not you're running around and taking care of everything else that's going on, like
babies and bomb shelters and
you got to not only fix your own food, but you may be washing the bottles later on that night and everything else, and you're just happy to do it because it's not there's another baby in the house, but for Mom this was her baby.
Yes.
And so just it kind of goes to the closeness of the family.
Okay.
So 9 kids in the family, and then when she left, Carol was 14, and then the twins were 10. This family, the youngest were toddlers when my mom left. She turned 20 on December the 6th, and then December the 23rd, she was in Virginia and getting married.
Is that what brought her to the United States?
Yes, she came to the United States. My dad was in the military, and they met in England.
Okay.
And so he'd been gone about 6 months, and he had sent her a letter and said he wanted to marry her. And so it took her about a year to get everything in place to be able to come over here to get married. The vetting process that she had to go through was a lot. It included actually vetting my grandparents as well because of what position he held in the Air Force.
Okay.
So they actually had to look into and vet my grandfather and make sure that everything was
okay.
And then there were immunizations and things like that my mother had to go through, and so it took almost an entire year before she could get her visa and everything was settled. And so she it her 20th birthday, December the 6th, and then I'm not sure what date it was actually. I think it was around the 19th or the 20th that she got here, and then on the 23rd they got married of December, and they had Christmas, and then he had to be in Texas by the 28th because he was getting his new assignment in Texas for the Air Force. And then so she had maybe a week at best getting to know people in America.
Wow.
That was it. And that was her whirlwind of learning the Southern charm. So
wow.
She went from, like I said, a lifetime of getting to know who you need to be as a young person, as an adult, as someone who was a caretaker of a brood of people.
Yes.
She came to America with a suitcase. Everything she owned was in the suitcase. Actually, everything she owned was only a couple of pieces of clothing because she didn't really have anything. What she had put aside as far as money to actually get here, because she knew what was going on. There was some bill or something that had come due, some debt that my grandfather had owed, and she found out about it just before she left. So she took care of it by taking care of whatever money that she had, and then she had to get rid of some of her own stuff.
Oh.
So that when she left, all she had was the dress that she purchased to get married in. She had one other outfit and a couple of personal items, and it all fit in one suitcase. And that's what she came to America with. That's all she had.
What a brave young lady.
And there was one gift that she was given for the wedding, and I think that's one of the kitchen items that I still have. That I got. And
that's
it's
precious.
one of the, one of the little baking sheet kind of things.
Yes.
But, yeah. So that was that lovely lifetime of, and then she learned a little bit of Southern this, that, and the other in 1 week's time, and off to Texas. So.
Oh wow! Culture shock from England to Texas at 20 years old, just married, in a suitcase.
Yeah, young lady, learning a lot alone.
Yes.
In Texas.
Yes.
And that shaped a whole lot. So she had a lot of a building of who she was in Texas, being alone. And I think that in going through a lot of the bond that we had, and I think a lot of what I've been dealing with in trying to figure out what I'm missing right now comes from what she gave me.
Okay.
Because Mom was a giver,
Yes.
giver.
Yes, generosity is her.
And I figured a lot of it out. And it came from when she got here. She had been in a place where she had such a support system, and it was in the house. And the support came literally from family. Because family was always there.
Yeah.
Well, and to hear her tell stories too, family was always there. It was a negative sometimes, you know what I mean? Like,
sure, nine kids, it's got to be a busy life.
she did not have her own toothbrush until she was 15.
Oh, our
And
stars.
she got a job, and she bought her own toothbrush.
Wow.
Because they had to share. Being the second oldest, and she was the oldest in the house, her sister Pat, who was 18 months older, 17 months older, not much older, left the house. And so that put her as the oldest in the house. The oldest got the last bath. So the bath water was fresh. You washed the babies first. So she got dirty bath water. And so
shared a toothbrush.
So when she got old enough and she got the job, she bought her own toothbrush, but she also would stop at the bathhouse once a week and take a bath and pay for water.
A clean bath.
But yeah, she always had family in the house. And so as good as that is to have family as a support, sometimes there was never a place to be alone also. But yeah, the support, there was always someone to turn to. Even if it was just to turn and look, there was someone there.
Yes.
Knowing that you always had, someone always literally had your back.
So that was shell shock.
Just there.
Go from loving of you to, it's just me. My husband's in the military.
And a lot of times, I mean, Dad didn't have that. Dad came from a very different family. Now, he had a brother and a sister, but they were not that kind of close. Very different culture, and so Dad did not come from a hugging family.
Okay.
Mom came from not just a hugging family. Carol, I guess born in a war like that, Carol is they would call Carol clingy. Clingy
gotcha.
Carol. Carol is a hugger. Bear hug, will not let you go, grip really hard,
Love it.
Yeah, and so the hugging, the closeness, and there was just a very different kind of thing there going on. And so to come into, and then Dad would be, Mom used to joke and say, I think he forgot he was married. Because he just wouldn't come home, like he would, for days, just not come home. And so not only was she alone, that she was alone a lot.
Okay.
And so she got a job, and she learned so many things. She got a job, and she made friends with it being that close to the border. So now she's like learning Tex-Mex kind of cooking.
Wow.
So she's doing short order cooking, and this is where there's so much different flair to her cooking that's just unreal.
Yes.
You know, she was such a great cook.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. I didn't know she was actually a cook somewhere.
I mean, she short order cooked her whole life. I mean,
oh, wow.
we never had to eat you eat what's put on the table for you, because she always asked, what do you want?
Okay.
And we understood there was a menu in her brain. There was always a menu in the house. Like, what do you want means literally, what do you want?
I can whip anything up.
And I mean, she would put whatever you wanted was, you know, doable in 5 minutes or less. Now, if you ask for something, you eat it.
Right,
But,
right.
you know, I mean, it was, yeah. So, yeah, she just could cook anything, could learn some interesting foods, messed up a whole lot from what I understand. Yeah, she had to learn how to cook these strange cuts of meats that she'd never seen before.
Wow.
And you know, did a lot of trial and error. And then, of course, once they left Texas, my dad was going to get he was going to have to do another overseas thing, and he didn't want to do that.
Okay.
And so they weren't going to relocate, and she wasn't going to go overseas with him, and didn't want to leave her here. That was a discussion they had, and so he decided to go ahead and get out of the military. They came back to stay in Virginia.
All right.
And so they relocated right back here in, you know, right in the Richmond area again, and that's where they stayed. And so they stayed fairly close to where my grandma was, and so that's where the influence back into the, here we've got to learn Southern cooking now.
Right, right.
And into phase 3, right? Phase 3 became the, right back to the, how do I put into action everything I learned as a child, you know? So she learned so much as a child to that nurturing in the home, what to do. My nanny, my dad's mom, very sickly. You know, she had a bad heart.
Okay.
So she had valve replacements. She didn't leave the house. I would say she was probably in her late 40s and was already being hospitalized for things to do with her heart. So needed a lot of care. And Mom just fell into the role. It never seemed like a burden. I don't think there was ever anything that my mom made seem like a burden at all.
No,
I mean,
she was a happy person.
She loved.
Or joyful.
In my life seen anybody who actually loved to do the work that she did. Mm-hmm. She's like, I love to iron. Well, I love to iron? What? She never taught me to iron. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, she showed me how.
Sure.
You know, but...
she was glad to do it.
Yeah. When she was in Texas, in order to get a few extra pennies, she took in ironing because the some of the single guys, you know, they needed especially the officers, they needed their laundry done just a certain way.
Sure.
But she didn't know that there was such a thing as a laundromat. And they didn't have a washer and dryer. So she was doing my dad's laundry in like the, you know, bathtub.
Oh, wow.
By hand.
Wow.
On a scrub board. And she was ironing and pressing and
starching, I'm sure.
Yes, and the neighbor was like, "What are you doing?" And so she introduced her to what a laundromat was. And so Mom found out that, you know, if she had money of her own, she could walk around the corner and take it and save her knuckles every now and then if she wanted to.
Yes.
You know, and that because they didn't have a yard to hang out the laundry, because she was used to that in England. You hang out the laundry. It's better. You know, the fresh air. She didn't mind doing work. She loved to do the work, but she didn't know how she was going to hang laundry out when you don't have a yard? She just couldn't. It was just so funny of her trying to adjust to an environment. She's like, how do you do the work? There's so many of those stories of how do I do, because she would go out of her way to make her environment the England environment, because she had no one to ask.
Right.
There wasn't any, and she wouldn't ask. She would just go, okay, there's a way to work around it. And she would work around it until like months later, someone would see her doing it and go, there's this. And she would find out afterwards so many different things. It's just like, oh.
That will make my life a little bit easier.
Okay. And I found like throughout time that she anticipated so many things for so many other people. I think that's why. Because she saw what everybody was going to need in every situation, because she'd been there.
Okay.
And it was like, I'm going to make sure that somebody's not left hanging.
Oh.
I'm going to anticipate their need before they ever get there. When you were talking the other day about how you guys, you had needs that came up, like you didn't even know you were going to have them, and that a friend had come and taken care of these needs, things that you didn't even think about.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. It's like someone's been through this before, and they knew that this was going to come up, and they just simply took care of it. And I think as she was raising me, I think she literally just plugged in absolutely everything. She had decided that she was going to be that support system for me, so that I didn't have to go through any of that. That's where big loss. It's not. I don't. Yeah, there's a whole.
Yes.
Because it's not just I lost mom. I don't know how to. There's something.
You lost your support system. You lost your encourager and your supporter.
I'm like,
it's a big deal.
I'm a big time adult now, and I know how to do all those things, but I still there's a lot of those things that I still haven't started doing for myself. You know what I mean?
Because mom was glad to help out and help the family.
And it's really weird. You don't realize what you haven't done for yourself, even as an adult, that mom just did. We joke about it, but to be honest, even as an adult, mom would reach over and do weird things at dinner, Like when she would fix dinner, like she was getting chemo, right? And she would still fix us Wednesday night dinner before going to church.
Because that's how she felt useful, what she was used to doing.
She cut my spaghetti.
How you like it done. And yes, those are the things you missed, that interaction and support you had. Oh, wow.
But she wasn't that way just for me.
No. Yeah.
She was, when you talk about, how would you describe my mom? And her story is really, she's a lovely girl raised in England. But, she was a young girl when she left, really. I mean, she was a teen, planning her trip over here to marry that American boy, and one of a family left behind. The whole family still living in that same 5-mile radius of this tiny little town, and communicating back and forth through pen and paper, because back then there was no, internet, and they didn't have a telephone. They didn't have a telephone to begin with. Right. Then they got a phone, which was a party line, and so didn't go back for the first time for 13 years, and so she didn't see her family for 13 years.
That's long.
When I was 6,
time.
That was the first trip she took back. I was 6 years old. Me and my brother and my mom went. I got to saw my grandma and grandpa. We went again when I was 9. That's the last time I saw my grandpa.
Okay.
So I got to see him twice. And then after that, my mom and I took a trip almost every year from the time I was 15 on up. Just the two of us would go.
I remember just for weeks the time frame that I knew her, weeks before the trip, she was talking about it, planning, preparing, smiling from ear to ear. And she smiles all the time anyway, but she was really smiling, and just would talk about the trip and seeing everybody. And then you'd hear about it after y'all got back, or if any of them happened to be coming here. It was such a big deal.
Yeah.
Such a big deal. So, and I will say this, I remember that about her. I mean, I didn't realize her background, what formed that generosity, but I remember well in my time frame in dealing with her at church, when Don was assistant pastor, and then when he was pastor, anything we mentioned, if she could physically do it or help with it, she came in to help with it, or especially food. I mean, whatever she brought in food for was a big deal, and made with love, and it was homemade, and all the wonderful things. Yeah, I remember that well.
We appreciate you joining us today at Speak Your Grief with Sonia. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube as new episodes are added weekly. Thank you again for joining us as we unpack our grief. We hope you have been reminded that you are not alone in this journey.